All right, good evening, everybody. I was kind of on track for starting on time for the last little while, and then that all fell apart today. Um, really stupid reason for it. I'm afraid to say. I thought I was going to save time by ordering in, and not only did I not get it on time, um, excuse me. But the order was incomplete. So yeah, I actually still have a little dinner for me. But Olaf, wonderful to see you again. Sorry for the late start. I knew I was going to start. Like I woke up at 7:30. I've had a couple of rough nights, so I did sort of get a bit of a nap after work and didn't set an alarm because I've only usually been able to get about an hour anyway. But but yeah, the food thing was definitely a bummer. Anyways, we are going to be back to not brace yourself. We're going to be back to Phantom Brigade, but I did forget to tweet out the stream, so just give me 1 second here while I send that out. So I'll try and go for the same duration. But yeah, let us not dwell on my indiscretions. Sorry about that. I am, however, looking forward to going back to Phantom Brigade, and I did get a bit of good news. Excuse me, as far as actually, there is an update for Phantom Brigade for me to download right now. So I am going to need another minute to get that sorted. But yeah, I did get a little bit of good sort of streaming news. So there's going to be a couple of events that come up this month, which I don't think I've been sworn to any kind of secrecy for, but given that I have not had the conversation about, about about telling people, I'll leave it, I don't know, to the imagination. But yeah, no, it's all good stuff. I think most of you will like what's coming up. You may be surprised where it is, but we'll have some fun with it, I think. I did also want to take a quick note here and mention that Brace Yourself Publishing, which is different from Brace Yourself Games. They're the same sort of company. It's just a different part of that of that company. But they've been releasing some rather good. Games recently. So we've been enjoying Godless, and we will be returning to that before too long. But Super Raft Boat Together came out, I believe, last week. And I bought that, but I was a little disappointed to see that there was less of an audience for it. So if this is one that kind of hasn't crossed your radar, particularly if you like sort of, let's say, sort of a Risk of Rain sort of roguelike sort of top-down shooter, I think it's a neat one. I mean, I don't want to just compare it to Risk of Rain. Risk of Rain is a wonderful game, but like I do tend to like thinking of games as their own things. But it's definitely one that I would, I'd recommend checking out. As for this one, though, I was given a copy of the game from the developers for promotional purposes. I'm a huge fan of it. I've been playing it since way back in the early access days on the Epic Store. And I've been, I don't want to spend too much time dwelling on the negative here, but I was very disappointed, let's say, to see the way that players were kind of announcing the death of this game when every bit of evidence was quite the opposite. And Brace Yourself has come out and talked about the status of the game. I'm not 100% sure in... sorry, just got a message here. So far as I can tell... Now again, I do not want to speak for Brace Yourself, and I don't have the specific... I don't have the specific instance to, like a post to refer to. But what I will say, looking at least based on my best recollection, I believe the way things are standing right now is that there is continued development on the game, largely about sort of implementing the things that I think they've always wanted inside of the game. But I've noticed that in general, game developers are not short for good ideas for their games, and I've also found that usually whenever I make a suggestion, how do you do, Vanguard Master? What I also tend to notice is whenever I've had a suggestion, I think this is more of a statement of my creativity more than anything. Very rarely is it a case where a developer has not thought of this. That's actually not 100% true. And actually it's a developer who's always very good at like anticipating the sort of stuff I was talking about. But yeah, like the thing is that sometimes it's not feasible. Sometimes it is. It might be good in isolation, but in the context of an overall game, it really doesn't work. There's actually an interview that I did where one of the developers sort of described it like the scene from Blade Runner, where Roy Batty is talking to Eldon Tyrell, and he keeps making all these recommendations in terms of how to solve the problem of his mortality. And, Tyrell sort of gives a, reply back immediately, well, we could do that, but then this happens. Well, then do this. It's like, well, yeah, we could do that as well, but then this happens. And it's like, well, then do this instead. It's like, well, we could do that, but then you die. So it feels like that sometimes. And again, I think like this isn't, I don't mean this to suggest that the developers that I wind up talking with, not that I talk with, it's not like I talk with them every day, but generally, I get the idea. I don't mean to portray them as know-it-alls, but I think it's fair to say that when someone lives with a game for so long, and I think Phantom Brigade was in development for something like 7 years. I remember someone was really snarky on Steam about how it was quote-unquote only 3 years. I was like, yeah, that's how long or whatever it was. Anyway, they took like the early access period, because obviously Phantom Brigade only existed when it went into early access. We all played the gray box version. But in any case, sorry, I'm babbling on this stuff. Let me roll it back to where I was before. What I wanted to talk about was the impression that I got from the posts is that there are plans for continued work on this game. The quality of life patch, I think, is an example of that. I think they've completely reworked melee. So melee basically aren't really melee weapons anymore. They let a shockwave kind of come out. And actually, it turns out that apparently there were some problems with the hit registry. I sort of worked it out for myself, but it does actually seem to be that there were some instances where it was causing problems for people. So you learn something new every day. But yeah, what I do also get the impression on is that they are very reluctant, and understandably so, to announce sort of what's coming up next. I think that's a very wise thing on their part too, for the simple reason that if you take a look at how people have reacted in the past to announcements relative to to the game, there is, in my opinion, quite a bit of overstatement in terms of what was, stolen from the players. I think this is true for Industries of Titan, and I think this is true for Phantom Brigade. And, it's hard not to talk about this stuff and not think about the way that people reacted to No Man's Sky. I definitely feel that in the case of No Man's Sky, there is a very high degree of enthusiasm when talking about the project. And in this case, there was something very different on release than what people were expecting. I don't think the way that those developers were treated was at all okay. I also think, there were perceptions of this game as somehow some kind of a disappointment or a failure that are completely counter to what the actual player numbers for that was. But the fact of the matter is that people will read even just the slightest hints of things in a post, and that's going to translate into, this expectation. And even if that only exists inside someone's head, the disappointment that they feel with a developer or with a game is real. And I can only imagine the worst thing that you would want for a game would be something that you've put so much effort into, something that you're excited to see release, then be undermined by something that was never going to exist in the first place, right? Something that only exists inside someone's head based off of their interpretation of a particular post. So as a fan of Phantom Brigade, I really do want to know what Phantom Brigade is up to, or at the very least what their plans are, and I can completely understand every possible... I can think of about, 5 or 6 really good reasons why they should never make those plans public. And unfortunately, that's translated in people announcing the death of the game, despite the fact that there have been statements to the contrary. So with all of that in mind, I have some baggage, let's say. I think highly of Brace Yourself. I think there's a lot of really wonderful people who are working on this game. I'm obviously very grateful that I was given a key and that I've been able to share this game with you. But I was obviously really disappointed by what I saw on Steam that one day, and I felt at the very least, because we're going to be playing the quality of life patch, I wanted to at least sort of talk about the fact that, I don't know, give some kind of a follow-up in terms of my disappointment. So anyways, 15 minutes in, we're ready to continue liberating Kongan's Land. Okay, let's take a look at where we're at. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Vanguard Master, it's like So I don't make a lot of errors at work. But the most important thing for me has always been, if there is an error, come clean. Like, the way you get a solution is when you say something went wrong. If you try and hide it, it's the old saying, right? It's not the crime, it's the cover-up. I don't think that Brace Yourself has done something wrong, by the way. But like when it comes down to like a gamer thing, like I just think, like, if you spend so much time, like, it's like EA, right? Like, if people spend so much time hating on a company and not even knowing why, they, and then that company does something good. Like, Apex Legends is obviously still minting money. Not as much as they projected, but, like, they're doing well. Or, like, when people were talking about, oh, they should have the Star Wars license pulled. They're never going to make a good Star Wars game, despite the fact that Battlefront 2 has continually increasing player counts. And then, unbeknownst to anyone, that Jedi Fallen Order was in development, and everybody loved that. And then, of course, there's 2 other Star Wars games. There's the Bit Reactor. I think it's a turn-based strategy game for Star Wars. And then a FPS, which we haven't really heard anything about from Respawn. Like, again, you can admit that you said something stupid, and then, we all learn from this. Or you can just kind of continue to pretend you didn't make a mistake, and then as a result, a perfectly good game just winds up trumping. Like, it's not like anybody's going back and changing their negative reviews, after this game got a patch. It just means this game now has to deal with, completely baseless negative reviews, for reasons, like, I don't know, apparently you're dissing the gamers if you don't provide, to the minute updates on the game. I don't know. We're gonna have to charge in. You know what? Let's speed it up because we need to save our people. Made it. Take them out. You followed a distress signal put out by the Home Guard to squash some enemy forces at this battle site. One of your pilots is Jumpy. They mean business, Commander. They really want to win this war. Another shrug. I reckon we can take them. What do you think, boss? Okay. I don't know... Oh, I like it when it's raining. Let's take a quick second here and see... yeah, it looks like we don't have that much in terms of parts. I should probably just scrap these, but... Actually, you know what? I'm not doing anything productive by doing those comparisons. I've got a very specific build that I've made here. So, we're going to go to the briefing. We have got 8 enemy units, plus some Home Guard assistance. It's saying that it's going to be very hard, but let's see how it actually turns out. Yeah, no worries, Vanguard. So I originally said I didn't want to talk too much about it, but like I'm always bad at that. So, so first of all, there was this mild perception that this game was just sort of kicked out the door, incomplete. I don't think that was a particularly like strong view, but it was somewhat persistent. And it's like, I know that there was some talk, in the chat. I don't know if that was ever like on the development roadmap or something like that, of like a, like a rival pilot system. I know that there are some things that probably were intended to be in the game that ultimately didn't make it in the release version. But like, I don't feel too strongly about that stuff, because that's true for every game. Like, just because a developer didn't make their plans public, that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that there weren't things that were planned. I would, like I said, I would be shocked if I found a developer that basically said, yes, we had every single idea that we came up with over the course of development. That's in the game. There was nothing left. But the big problem here, and this is the thing that I felt the worst about and I don't like dwelling on, is that Brace Yourself Games has experienced layoffs. And these are like, there's a lot of people who I think very highly of, who I admire, who lost their jobs. And there are some people who I didn't get a chance to meet, but there's a lot of very talented people at Brace Yourself Games who were part of the layout. There was a very large number. There are some of them who are back. So actually, I'll give a special shout out here to Demi, also known as Demi Leaf. She's now with the team that does Slay the Spire. So naturally, I have filled the Discord with puns there and there. I noticed that she's fond of them, but that is an audience that likes puns less. I definitely can't say. I mean, this is up to... I wanted to mention someone who's, gotten another position. But I'll be honest, like, I don't know if everybody has found a new job yet, and that really sucks. I don't think anybody on that team really is... I mean, I don't know if anybody's deserving of any kind of unemployment, to be honest, but... like, this is... Like, to me, the question, like, what does this mean for the games, was a completely separate issue. I happen to know that there was at least one very cool project that was being worked on that was canceled as a result of that. But, on the other hand, you also want to make sure that you can continue to be a going concern as a company, right? And if there's a project that is potentially putting the company at risk in terms of its financial position, then that means that promising things don't necessarily get made. I can't speak to their circumstances. Obviously, I have to assume that nobody made that choice lightly, but I also can't imagine that, people feel the same way about working there as they used to. So to me, that was terrible news for people who I admire greatly, continue to admire greatly. But gamers, always live up to the worst stereotypes about them. And so effectively what happened was there was a mass of negative reviews on Phantom Brigade saying that the game had been abandoned. Now, first of all, this game is out of early access, right? There's been absolutely no promise for lifetime DLC or something along those lines. But the worst thing about it is that every indication I've seen is it's completely counterfactual. That the developer has always stated, in fact, even at the time of the layoffs, I believe I think it might have been the PC Gamer article, mentioned that there were people working on ongoing support for the game Phantom Brigade. Now, it could just be referring to this quality of life patch, but there seems to be an indication that their intention is to add more to Phantom Brigade. Don't take that as a commitment. This is me, some streamer, talking about the status of Phantom Brigade, not an official statement from Brace Yourself. Brace Yourself will announce things when they're ready, and the ones you should be looking forward to, are Super Raft Together, which is out now, and then Cobalt Core, which will be coming out, and then Rift of the Necrodancer, which is also looking very good. So, it's not like there are things that aren't happening. But again, people want to create these narratives on Phantom Brigade. So the thing is that the game that was very positive or overwhelmingly positive or whatever its rating was before, it's literally the same game. The only thing that has changed is HR news, and absolutely tragic. I was genuinely devastated when I read that. But my 10th thought was not, what does this mean for my mech video game, right? So, yeah, it's just the whole idea of there being people mistook for something that players didn't like this. I'm really talking more about the way that people there's other things that go on in terms of statements and that. So the reason why I say that they're not doing it out, basically people are taking the lack of announcements as an indication that the game is not being worked on. And the reason why they're not doing announcements is that there are other examples of people taking statements that are not sort of official roadmaps and turning them into promises which they aren't. And that obviously can contribute to a feeling that is not true. But yeah, I don't think that is the source of the worst stuff that's happening to Phantom Brigade. I do notice that the reviews are a bit higher now. It's up to mixed, but this is not a mixed game. This is a very, very good game. It's not a AAA sandbox. It's not Assassin's Creed, right? You're not gonna have every type of game genre in one package. But it's immensely satisfying to go into the tactical layer. So dropping in, Command is getting impatient. Let's get this over and done with. I'm sorry, by the way, for everybody else for spending so much time talking on this, but I did want to, if I'm going to accuse people of making assumptions and whatnot, I don't want someone who's asking a question about what's going on to leave that out in the air. You feel that because if people look at the progress of your game based on the content you put out, you think you haven't touched it in ages. I've never seen you work on it. Yeah. I mean, it's the same problem as just about every other problem in the world. It's a bunch of people who have no idea what they're talking about, speaking like they're authorities, and unfortunately there's no correlation whatsoever between an audience and in fact, it's probably a negative correlation between knowledge and audience, because generally, if you just make up insane nonsense, that is very easy to share. And if you are actually trying to be thoughtful, then I obviously have a chip on my shoulder about that particular one. If you're trying to be thoughtful, then you're basically just going to be fodder for the idiots who want to want to make a name for themselves by farming outrage. So yeah, I mean, there's a whole. I think like marketing. The whole point of marketing, the whole the whole deal seems to be. Oh, that's really neat. I didn't notice they added the contour map. Okay. Man, they really shut me down here. Yeah, like marketing is a thing. Like it is a discipline where people like work out the right time to announce things so that it will have the best possible impact for a project. So I'm perfectly content to let developers, take their time doing things. Like I am a fan of these things. I like I like being able to get excited about things and and feel and build up that anticipation through things, like through announcements and marketing campaigns and all of that. Like Book of Hours, I am utterly beside myself after that launch trailer. That looks really, really good. But if the announcement were to be, it's like, listen, we oh man, that they really, this is really helpful. So I'm definitely not canceling as many orders as I used to. So I'm definitely playing with fire doing this, but so this is going to focus some attention on my heavy here. Now, the plasma launcher, not that great for close range. And then the incendiary rounds, if it comes down to it, well, it does do some kinetic damage, but so I think as long as we can deal with the tanks, we'll keep our the heavy will be safe, but that's a big if, because the next challenge is the railguns. Okay, well I think that's the best I can hope for here, so I think this is going to look like big and dramatic, but this is probably not going to put me in a good position for the next phase of the fight. Okay. So obviously I'm going to completely cancel out all the movements for the tanks and such. Okay, so the missiles are a bit of a worry here. That's all kind of getting focused down on the machine gun tank. I like this. This is going to take a while to get it in position, but I'm reasonably happy with where that winds up. Yeah, okay, so there's a little too much positioning, and my people are not in the best spots by the end. But I'm kind of curious to see where this goes. I'm most worried about this guy with the railgun repeater. Okay, trivial in terms of the damage. So again, this sniper is supposed to take out at least one of these tanks to protect the heavy. That thing melted, so that's good. I don't think that tank's dead, though. Yeah. We needed more. We lost one unit. That is too many. Make sure that this was the last casualty, or command will be hearing about this. Okay, so I definitely want this. I want this tank hugging the hill. I was under the impression that it would be able to go a little bit further. Okay, well. Yeah, so they're kind of going nuts with the missiles, but that's fine. Because we're just going to hit them with what the last group did. Unfortunately, I think... Oh, hang on. No, we can make this work. Okay, so that's a machine gun that's coming after my unit, and that's coming like right away, so finish what we started there. I'm curious if I can do slightly better. Yeah, that's a full... Okay, now this is a worry, because they're going to just go crashing right into the back of my unit, and this one is quite light. So they are going to get the worst of that. So that's actually a really clever way of taking out my... Ooh, yeah, actually that railgun repeater is going to... That is going to do a number on them. That almost certainly is going to kill this mech. But I have absolutely no... So basically, anything this gets hit by... Oh, well, it's a scatter 9, so... But yeah, this thing does a fair amount of damage, so I definitely needed to protect this much better than I did. So what we're going to do, we're going to wait out the... turn. Okay. I'm starting the recovery. Okay, so this tank isn't going to make it in time, so we're going to move them off to the side. Try and get them in position to do something. And then finally I need to move the... Okay, this guy is an assault rifle. I don't exactly want to use my own assault rifle as a bit of a janitor, but this will help me clear out some of the... This will help me clear out a bit of the other trouble. Okay, so I don't want to be crashing into enemy units. Hopefully that clears out the tanks, although obviously it's the enemy mechs that I want to do the most damage to. Okay, so as far as the allies go, I think we just let her rip on the... on the missile launcher. Okay, that looks good. Alright, so we'll do a quick replay of what that looked like in the previous run. So the thing we're most worried about is this missile that's coming towards this tank. So we missed out on all the fun on the side there. I'll do a replay on this, obviously. I'm thinking this tank's gonna get the worst of it. Could have been worse. So miraculously, the Manticore didn't seem affected by the shotgun at all. We got a little ping by the machine gun, but definitely not as bad as it could have been. Now, I didn't see who was targeted with that plasma launcher. I'm hoping that it just hits the wall. Yeah, it does. Okay, this guy's presumably gonna melt. How you doing, Ray Beam? Have you seen Phantom Brigade before? I think, obviously you would have come through Outlast, but... So I think the best we can hope for here is to take out their legs, but I don't think that's going to happen. Well, they'll still crash. That's something. We're backing them into a corner. Just a little more, boss. We can get to those civilians. You don't think so? So this is a great turn-based tactical game by Brace Yourself. Originally, the company that made this was called Tetragon Works, but they were acquired by Brace Yourself. And it doesn't have a full replay. It's the most requested feature, and I think they want that in the game as much as possible. But the thing that's neat about this one is that it's entirely non-deterministic, so everything in this is modeled. Every single one of these bullets is part of a big simulation. If you're interested in game development tech, I believe this uses the Entity Component System for Unity, which I believe is now finally out of beta in the 2022 long-term service version. So, you know, Vanguard, I know you're really looking to switch engines midway through your project, so... but anyways, tech aside, it's basically you play this insurgency after your country has been overrun. These are the occupation forces. In fact, the specific mission that we're doing is we are helping the Home Guard, sort of the remnants of the defense force for this country, we are assisting them fight an occupation force. This is actually a fairly tough fight for us, partly because I made some stylish but maybe tactically unwise decisions. But in any case, what we can do is we can review the turn. So this is what it looks like in real time. So what I'm curious about, this unit was going to fire on the unit with the minigun, and we were worried about that. Okay, yeah, so it was just too far for it to be effective. So the way that I built this squad is that they're very fast, but they are very fragile. Like, glass cannon doesn't even begin to describe how weak these things are in terms of getting some hits. So what I've been trying to do is just sort of munch on some of the units that are keeping me from being able to fulfill my plan. So in this case, we put the sniper up on top to take out that tank, which happened here. And we also wanted to go to a point where that machine gun wasn't going to do too much damage. So overall, we accomplished what we were looking for this turn. We did so sort of sacrificing the movement of the tank. So in this case, the home guard units really aren't assisting that much. But the good news is that the threat of the missile launcher is just about gone. The Manticore is still in good health, so we're going to be able to turn that on an enemy unit. Probably the one with the plasma launcher, just because that thing can be a real pain for a concussion. And then I think we're going to be doing a bit of a cleanup job as far as the tanks are concerned. So let's go to the plan. So first of all, let's just see who's getting targeted. Yep, so not too surprising that the Manticore is the target for that. In this case, I'm just going to let her rip for as long as I can, because so they're going to fire their plasma launcher, but I get to move out of the way. Now, the plasma launcher actually follows you around, so that may not be enough, but I'm hoping that we can at least rough this guy up a bit. So I don't need to worry about the first attack, but the second one I do. So let's see if we can make... that's not a good chance. That one's not a good angle. Okay, so I'm going to get a little bit of distance. Dash away, and then... I think the plasma launcher is a higher priority here in terms of the attack. So I'm basically moving my sniper first of all out of danger, and then second we're double backing to take out that unit. Now this unit's crashing right now, but it looks healthy enough to kind of keep fighting. So what I think I'm going to do is just queue up a second round with the Vulcan. The reason why I'm not committing more units is we do actually need to get our people into the fight. So I better hope that I can dash in on time. Not with that heat. Okay, we can delay this a little bit. Now this is probably overkill to focus on this unit here, but this is what I've got available to me. So that means that I want to take my, I want to take the Herald, and we're going to basically use it to mop up the remaining enemy tanks. So this one's kind of a no-brainer for the start. It looks like they're actually going to be waiting for an extended period of time, so we're just going to sit... I think I'll just seal the deal, actually, if I'm going to be waiting that long. Okay, then we move around the side. Okay, so how are we for the team? Everybody's got a job to do, so now what we're going to do is make sure that the Actually, now I'm gonna keep the turn as it is, but I do think I can start bringing some of my allies into play. Okay. There's an option to do everything in slow motion, and I feel it's mandatory because the game just looks too cool to pass it up, so. This guy's doing a decent job of avoiding the consequences of these shots. So what we should see here is he's going to dash by, and then this guy's going to start firing. Okay, so that unit didn't get too much damage, so what I'm curious about now is whether or not this plasma attack hits the Manticore. Yeah, so even the sniper rifle didn't do too much damage to them there. Ooh, I'm thinking we're short on the cover that we need. Oh, there's a nice little friendly fire incident there, though. Okay, they should be hitting this guy here. And then this should mop up the remaining tank. There we go. Okay, and at least this unit is crashing. And did the plasma... Yeah, the plasma fell against the hill. So, if we want to see what that looked like in... Hey, and the music's turned good, so... Well, like, positive. Music's always good. Yeah, so in terms of the story for the game, there's basically you have a technology that will give you certain knowledge of enemy actions 5 seconds into the future, so you can build your strategy around that. It's a little bit like Into the Breach in that case. The catch is that you don't have a game if you can't affect what's going on. And so the challenge here is that you need to build a turn around the fact that you are going to be messing with the enemy's ability to pull off their actions. So in this case, I just want to clean up some of the... Ooh, actually, this railgun's a little bit of a pain. So maybe we can turn our attention onto... not at that range. Now, I don't think the Vulcan's going to do the trick here. Well, pretty tempting, actually. So we get this nice stream into the... I'm worried about the hill here. I'm wondering if I just go a little bit further to the side... Okay, and that says I can't pull it off at all. Oh, right, because of that. Okay. So you know what? Here's my second best. Yeah, so that drops off too quickly. That does the trick, though. Okay. So what this unit's focusing on with the railgun repeater is this tank. Now this tank's pretty slow moving. The best I can do, the railguns do go through... they do go through the environment, but it does reduce the damage. So I think the best we can do here is just sort of run off and hope for the best. Now for my machine gun tank, we kind of need to get them into the fight again. But honestly, I think they're a little too slow moving for it to be all that effective. So I think what I'm going to do instead with my machine gun mech, we're going to keep making this guy sad. My marksman's already doing their work, or longbow, technically. So my free agent is the Herald with its assault rifle. So I'm just going to get them to go on a merry chase all through the enemy lines, doing as much damage as they can to any targets of opportunity that aren't blocked. Okay, that looks pretty decent. Finally, I want to see if I can somehow get an angle on this unit. Okay, yeah, so next turn we'll be in position to make this unit sad. So let's see the magic happen. It's all going to be on this side of the map. I didn't really need to follow up with that machine gun round. Oh, that was a thing of beauty. Three units going up all at once like that. Okay, so I definitely thought we were going to take a lot more damage than we did there. Victory, all hostiles eliminated, site now under control. So we'll do the usual trick of grabbing all the colored items first. Okay, so now I need to start making some choices. So let's say, okay, I'm going to kill the greens for now. So anything new is on the list for sure. Yeah, I wish it were otherwise, but we're gonna stick with this for now. Okay, so really we just need one more battle. It doesn't really matter where, but what I do need to make sure is that we repair. So I need to get out of the enemy radar range first. Okay, so now we're up to our hundreds. I think it said this was a reinforced convoy. That's a security unit. Okay, so we're going to chase him down. We are going to take some time to load out the mechs. First day, you'll do great, you over here from the changing station. It's one of the mechanics beaming at your newest pilot. Every pilot's got to have their first day, right? The pilot's hands are shaking as they try to close the clasps on their suit. Yeah? One day you'll be standing on the soil of a free country. You'll look back to this moment. You will feel proud of everything that you fought for. The clasps lock tight. The shaking stops. Now get out there and fight, kid. Okay, suit up. Let's take a quick look at what we're up against, actually. So, a little cluster of 3 and then 5 here. So, we can... It is a raid mission, so if I want, I can just take the goodies and run. But let's... I think usually for these missions, I wind up trying to take out everyone anyway. So, we'll start with a Manticore. So, the question, as always, is if I were to replace the Can I not get rid of it? This is definitely one quality of life thing I'd kind of like to see if I can. An ability to compare like something without like it'd be nice to do some more apples to apples comparisons in terms of the underlying characteristics. So what I'll do here, I'll put the light plate and overdrive on this Nox. I don't have an overdrive. Okay, that makes it even harder. Okay, so we'll give it a takeoff and a hot rod then. Actually, all we really need to do is let's just give this a regenerator, because that's the only thing that's going to affect the weight. Okay, so yes, this thing does actually get better. Oh, hang on, but I don't have a defensive right. Okay. Well, that answers that. So unless they have defensive modules, so this arrow might be a potential. Yeah, so the Tsubasa is still better in that regard, so... Okay, so the Manticore is as good as it's going to get. Now, it's worth thinking a little bit about, like, so what am I trying to do with the Herald here? So this got a pretty radical redesign, because the ideal... So, like, the Manticore's problem... There's two mechs that I have in my team that have special design requirements. So one of them is the Manticore, and that's because I'm trying to get its speed up to 28, like the rest of the team. The other one that's like that is the Protector, because obviously it's a big beefy mech, and I want, you know, again, I'm building for speed, but it is nice to have something that can take a hit if it has to. The Herald is a different beast. The Herald finds it very easy to move at 28 speed. So the trick behind this one now is to take the torso, you know, give it something like the hot rod, which in this case it's better at heat dissipation, which effectively allows it to do more attacks in a given turn. So essentially, as long as I can continue to find new ways of so speed has been taken care of. The rate of attack is sort of optimized at this point here. So if I can find something that will either increase the rate of my attacks, or alternatively, if I can find something that will allow it to survive a bit longer. So if I can boost its armor up without losing anything else, those are the sorts of things I'm interested in improving right now. Now, the fact of the matter is, I don't think that's very realistic for the Herald. I think, you know, even with improved armor, I'm probably looking at a pretty frightening. That's astonishing, actually. So even with the increase in mass, we would actually do. Well, that's probably because we don't have the heat sink on it. Yeah, I don't see a point in going to a lower rated item. But yeah, so in this case here, like, you know, this thing's got 294 in terms of its defense for its legs. This is not really going to be able to stand up to any kind of a hit. So if I can do something that's not going to the Arrow 1L would be a good example here, but this is like a green 8, so that's not really going to change anything. This has promise, though. Okay. I'm assuming there's no better gun here. Yeah. Okay, let's take a look at the longbow. So again, similar situation with the longbow. Now, I am in a slightly better position here because I can just chuck this 1L on it. I guess we give you the regenerator too now. So just as a reference. Oh yeah, I guess I'd have to put the regenerator on it. So, yeah, in this case here, the Nox, lower mass, higher integrity, sort of a win-win there. I'm actually curious if I can get away with a hollow plate. I can. Okay, that's good to know. Just trying to eke out a little extra as far as the So I would normally go for an arm like this, except that it's got a mobility module instead of an offensive module, so that doesn't quite work for me in the overall plan. Okay, so we're on to the Protector, which again is a completely different design from the other ones. So first thing I want to take a look at is there a better machine gun I can give this? Nope, so I'm going to get rid of that one for sure. Okay, I don't think we're going to replace this Fallon shield. It's a lower level Nox 2M, so I'm not even going to consider that. The legs. So we're at level 9 legs. I can't really justify putting the skinny ones on. Like, this would be tempting. Oh no, actually that puts me down to a medium in terms of weight. So like this is a bit of a shame, right? Because 669 is good in terms of integrity compared to 699, and if I can shave like 4, well, it's like 3 and change. But if I can shave some weight off, that works really well. The catch is that, oh, actually, you know what? If I throw a generator on that, yeah, it's still not enough. Okay, this looks like this is better for my... There's like a slight reduction in terms of the strength. Actually, it might be the old arm. Yep, that's why I didn't do that. So this guy's still got to be a heavy. That's one of the reasons why this is so difficult to divide. Okay, so I am going to take a second here just to clear out some of the duplications. So first of all, I'm pretty sure it was a hurricane that I had, but let me just double check that. Okay, the Starburst, this one does more damage overall, so I think we'll scrap that one. Got 2 charges, considerable difference in terms of the damage here. I'm keeping all of the different, yeah, I'll hang on to these for now. I do eventually need to figure out what secondary weapons I'm getting rid of. And then when it comes to I think when it comes to body parts, I think we can afford to just scrap them all. Okay, let's see if I can... So when it says sort group, I do kind of wish that there would be stuff like when it says basic plate and so on. I do kind of wish that it would group them together. Honestly, the hardest one that I've got here is like it would be nice to be able to say, okay, I've got 4 hot rods. I'm not going to need more than 4 of any given thruster. So we're getting rid of the surplus. Honestly, though, I don't need the scrap that much. So we're just going to go to the briefing. Try not to die. I really do like it when it rains in this game. Commander of the base is circled around the perimeter. We're ready to pick the squad up if needed. The enemy will hold the site if you do so. Code Red, hostile unit contact. All units hold optimal range and await reinforcements. So we are definitely in a situation... I noticed the last couple of missions, we're definitely at the point where it feels like the enemy is very strong. Like, both in terms of the mechs that they're fielding, but also just the sheer number that's coming after us. So also it's worth noting that external reinforcements show up in 9 turns, so that puts a timer for me in terms of making this happen. So it is completely legitimate for me to try and go for the objectives and run out. That would actually be ideal. Now it looks like we're going to have to sort of push our way through anyway, but what I may want to consider is sort of breaking out the Herald, sort of strafing along the side, just so I can get the objectives while the rest of the kind of team fights through. We'll see. This is definitely a case where I want to take an inventory of the enemy, though. So we've got a machine gun. Okay, a cannon I don't need to worry as much about. The cannon doesn't do too much damage. Missile launcher is a worry. Okay, lots of machine guns. Okay, it's machine guns and missile launchers, basically. So this is kind of public enemy number 1 for the marksman unit. I think let's start by, where I can, let's take out those machine guns before they can become a problem. And you know what? There's a better angle that I can take on that. I'm basically trying to make it so that they're not turning their shield towards me. Okay, so this unit's firing a missile at this unit, so I'm going to have to run away after. Now, most of the units are actually attacking the Herald here, so I'm going to take advantage of that by moving off to the side. So notice what this does to the enemy here, right? Their weapon is now facing the source of damage. So that's if they don't have a weapon to fire, they're just going to leave the battlefield. I think I can afford to do well, can't do a dash here, but okay, that's a decent start for the... I mean, as far as objectives are concerned, that's a decent start. In terms of doing damage, that leaves something to be desired, but there's a plan behind that. Okay, so in theory, if I wanted to try and take out... So, okay, so there's no way I can take out the missile launcher this turn. That's fair. What I will do instead... I'm going to risk the missile that's coming after them right now. There's actually multiple missiles, so... Gonna walk it off a bit, and then we're gonna dash to safety. All right. And unfortunately, I've got a big traffic jam on the side here. So I think my second best will be to move my... A little later than I'd like, but it does actually open us up to a nice shot on this unit that I didn't think I was going to get here. So essentially what we do, most of the units are able to sort of deliver their attacks. Now, I do want to make sure that my Manticore is... they need to get ready for their exit because there's a missile already headed their way. I'll probably just dash it along the side here. But yeah, let's see how that turns out. So respectable damage to the torso, not so much to the weapon, but... Now we get to see people escape the missiles. Okay, reinforcements are still on their way. I'm happy this unit's crashing. That was unexpected. Okay, so this guy's already broken through. He's firing with his cannon, so I don't have as much to worry about that. Oh man, everybody's mad at this guy. Okay. So here's what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to try and move... Okay, that's great right up to the time that everybody's focusing this guy down. So, as much as I like that option, doesn't work for me. I'll take whatever shots I can get at this point. Okay, so the missiles aren't going away for my manticores, so I think in this case we're going to dash them away at the start. Now, if I can get them firing at the start of this turn, that would be amazing. It's cutting it close on the heat, but... Oh. Okay, this is the better of the two. Yeah, I'll take a little heat damage on that, just because if we can start taking some more mechs off the board, that's ideal. So these missiles should not be a threat anymore based on that dash that I did. The question now becomes, all right, so they're still firing at me. So it's kind of a similar case where we wind up dashing away. Difference here is I'm going to put myself up on a perch. Okay, so last question for me is this really the best that this unit can be doing? At the moment, yes, because they're not going to be able to open fire, so we'll just hide them behind a hill, as bad as that makes me feel. Oh, that was beautiful. Oh, that's no good, though. The drone has a rough location of the crate, but we're going to need another ping to ensure it's picked up. Stay at the location and finish this. Okay, so we'll try and move this unit as best as we can. So counterintuitively, using them to get the objective is not a bad idea here. Okay, so this unit's ejecting. They've lost their weapon. We need to hold and take the objective, so... just take whatever pot shots I can at the enemy while I can. And then looks like most people are not paying attention to this unit anymore. I mean, the cannon is... cannon's still firing on them, but that's not the sort of thing I would want to stop a turn over. So I'm curious if I've got an angle on this guy. I'm guessing no. Not an exciting one, at least. I'm thinking maybe we can switch dance partners. Okay, that's like a 1 in a million shot, but the big thing is you'll notice all of these are blocked by terrain, so that makes me reasonably happy. Okay, I don't like that missile. I probably should have paid attention to that. So I don't know 100% if this works this way. Alright, took a little damage off of that. That was a good turn for us. Okay, unfortunately, they seem to nail the longbow there. All right, the crate is locked on. Our drone has the cords. Should be descending any second now. Okay, so let's just get a quick tally. This unit's ejected. This unit's ejecting. This unit's currently crashing. This unit's just finishing up its shots. The longbow didn't get too roughed up there, so I'm pretty happy with that. So the first question we have is there something that this unit can offer? I think in this case we just blast straight into the back of this enemy mech. The fact that they're dashing around causes a bit of a problem. But yeah, this is the machine gunner. This is the one that I'm more worried about. So next thing I want to do is take my marksman, or sorry, my longbow. Actually, it was the concussion that really hurt that one. Oh, that's no good. So I'll move back. Yeah, that's a good angle. So then I can also bring the Herald back into play. And honestly, the best thing for me to do here is just sort of stand and fire into the back of this enemy unit. So I do note that there are missiles coming in, so I'm going to have to run away basically immediately after, but we've been able to escape that in the past, so I think I'll settle for it. You'll notice, though, that my concussion goes quite low, so I can't afford too many hits like that. Had a bit of friendly fire. Oh! Something concussed them. That's no good. I want to dodge the missiles here where I can. Okay, and 4 turns before the reinforcements arrive, so we'll be good. There is a missile on its way, but I think what I'll do is I'll take the shot. You know what? I'll take 2. I don't know why I thought that was going to work. So all of a sudden, those 4 turns are starting to look a little closer than I wanted. I mean, the AI is playing it smart. If you've got a unit that you think can hold on. Okay, no, they're ejecting, so never mind. I'll let my unit try and dodge the missiles. Obviously, the concussive damage crept up on me, but Yeah, we pulled it off. Okay, so we've got workshop charges, batteries, not too much in terms of special gear, but that's fine. We can always scrap it. It's got 50 left in terms of scrapability. All right, province liberated. Thanks to your efforts, the enemy was driven out of a contested province. Resistance forces will hold it from here on out. Complete victory. The invaders have slunk away with their tails between their legs thanks to your decisive and bold maneuvers. Multiple messages come in from different officers in the Home Guard, grateful for your contributions. The radios are also jammed with messages of celebration that fly from town to town in the area, all happy to contribute to kicking the last of the invaders from these lands. A pilot approaches you while others are distracted by the celebrations going on outside the base. Can we celebrate, boss, just for tonight? I think we earned it. So, yes, we are going to celebrate. I'm actually kind of glad that we kept the booze because clearly I need to recover a lot off of getting concussed. So I'm going to do just a standard, or I guess we don't do anything. I would just do a standard run. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to enjoy a little bit of dinner, but for any of you who may be seeing this game for the first time, now that you've seen a couple of rounds of it, does anybody have any impressions? Or people who are longtime fans of the game, obviously feel free to let your enjoyment of it be known, but I'm kind of curious for people who haven't seen it before what your impression of Phantom Brigade is. Because I'm always secretly worried I actually don't make games seem that interesting. I'm a little worried about the liquid fix. Stargazing. As night falls, two of your pilots approach. Hey, boss, one says, we were wondering if you'd let us stop for the night. We're going to watch the meteor shower, the other says. It's such a clear night, and we'll be able to see it for miles. Yeah, I think I'm fine with watching the stars. We're already doing the celebration anyway, so it's not that much more. I think this may be a bug. I don't think there's supposed to be enemy repair convoys running around in friendly provinces. We'll gobble them up if we can move, but I'm gonna get you. Gear up. At your order, the base flies into action and prepares for a fight. An engineer sprints towards the bay to check on the guns, passing a scout relaying combat data through the radio. There's shouting everywhere. At your side, someone's legs bounces up and down, boot heel tapping on the grate. You feel your eyes on you, awaiting your command. Okay, I'm going to try and be as speedy as I can with this. So mobility doesn't help me, offensive doesn't help me. The legs aren't as good. Okay, so for the Herald, we don't have better arms. And again, I don't see how heavy torsos help us out here. Oop. I forgot to upgrade my base again, but we'll worry about that after the next run. So there may be some possibilities here. And I don't quite see how I can make these work, so... This should be a relatively straightforward one for us, but I'm curious because actually we may take some time. I actually would kind of like to take a look at the patch notes now because I get the impression that they've changed the way the squads work. Overall, I think the difficulty's been increased a little bit. That or I'm just rusty, but... Commander, the base is circled around the perimeter. We're ready to pick the squad up if needed. The enemy will hold the site if you do so. Getting negative IFF code. We've got hostiles in range. Engage at will. Reinforcements should be coming soon. I like this song. This song, among many others, is a very good reason to pick up the soundtrack. Okay, so nobody's coming after the... nobody's coming after the big guy. So we're going to get him to take out their big guy. We have got, okay, an autocannon, a machine gun. Oh, is it just 3? Piece of cake. So my marksman is my traditional tank muncher. So it used to be that it would be one shot would be enough, but I've noticed that it's usually a couple now. Okay, so the rest of this is about maneuvering the Herald. Now, the Herald's under fire, so I don't mind running them. Actually, there's one thing I can do to help out. If I'm going to be running this long, I don't think it hurts to do a dash as well. Because we might be able to... I think we can just peek in the back there. So you can kind of see how each of these different mechs has their own role, right? So we've got maximum mobility for the Herald, which is just sort of zipping around to the back line, whereas my Protector is sort of lumbering up the middle. You know, I wasn't originally going to do this, but because they're the target of the heavy weapon, I'm actually just going to get them to put up their shield and stay put. Again, everything in this game is simulated, so while these houses do offer some protection, they do get destroyed, and you're going to see how quickly those things fall apart. So this is more of an insurance policy for my unit. Also just to keep my liquid fix intact, so let's see how it goes. Okay. So I don't know how much of that we got. Actually, we can watch that. Yeah, so we got hit by a little bit of that, but nothing too critical. I didn't want to move him behind here just because I'm worried about these two units getting hit. So this guy is intended to sort of take a hit, whereas these two are not. I think you might get to see a little bit of how the replay works. So just take a look at how this guy's bullets move. It's like, see how they kind of have these weird trajectories? So the way that I understand... So again, if you consider the problem that that Brace Yourself is sort of working with here, you've got a game which, unlike most strategy games, it sort of has this non-deterministic physics system. So, like, the best example you can think of in this would be a game like Civilization. So Civilization, or like XCOM would be another example. You have these seeds. So if you don't, if you're not familiar with sort of how a seed works in a game, computers aren't like really random. It's actually undesirable for a computer to be completely random. So a good example I would give you for this would be in the case of econometrics. Sometimes we use simulation-based methods to get something like a standard error. So if you know what a bootstrap is, that's a simulated method. And the thing is that when you're doing some kind of science, generally one of the hallmarks of sort of good science through history has been the ability to reproduce the experiments. So often what you want is you want a sequence of random numbers, but you want a sequence of random numbers that the computer is going to be able to reproduce. Because if you don't have that, then if you're sort of relying on checking work, you can say, okay, well, you just got to keep running it until you get lucky, right? That doesn't really work. So this helps for games as well, because what you're kind of looking for is in a game like Civilization, one of the things that Sid Meier's got a GDC talk about this actually. The one thing that they were worried about was that you'd be playing the game and you have your like a 1 in 3 chance of winning the fight, right? And then that 1 in 3 happens, and you feel really terrible about it. And so what you do, instead of taking your lumps, you stop and you reload the game. And like you're willing to accept the wins 2/3 of the time. I'm bad for this sometimes, right? You're willing to accept the wins 2/3 of the time, but those 1/3 are just unforgivably bad, and you're never gonna get you're just never gonna get over it. So you reload the game, and effectively what it means is that your units have a 100% success rate. And then, of course, what happens is instead of saying I'm spoiling the game for myself, what you then do is you then go to the Steam forums, which obviously didn't exist at the time that Meier's making this decision, and talk about how easy the game is. In this particular case, what they did was they used a seed. And essentially what that means is that with that seed, you have a guarantee in terms of how the random numbers are going to be generated. So like let's just say it's, a number between 0 and 100. If if the third number is 100, the first time it's always going to be 100, right? Every random number that's ever going to be generated in the game has been predetermined. Now, you can still actually mess around with that in terms of games. So if you can do things in a different order, I think people who save and reload in XCOM, there's a good example of this, where being able to knowing if you know that you're going to get a bad random number ahead of time, maybe you use one of your less important actions on that one. And then, when you get a 1, it has to be like below a certain number. And when you get a 1, you're like, "Ooh, that's a really good result. I'm going to focus on that." That's one way you can sort of game a seeded RNG. In any case, so that's a really good example of sort of how determinate random numbers works. And by the way, I have no idea of how this actually works in terms of Phantom Brigade. I'm just kind of going by some comments that were made and sort of the inferences that I'm drawing from that. So in the case of Phantom Brigade, it doesn't do that, right? Every time you see these bullets flying off, it's running its simulation. I'm assuming there's some like random component in terms of where they'll move sort of within a cone or whatever. And that makes for a really fun game. And again, just being able to see stuff like this where you have, a building hollowed out from the enemy shots, and, just to have that breathtaking moment where, oh, did we get it? Did we not? Especially when it comes to missiles, to see whether or not they hit or something like that. All of that's really exciting. But it makes it very difficult for the thing that everybody keeps asking for, which is the replay. So it's actually really impressive that they've already put in a replay in the game. Because the way that this works, as far as I can tell, is it takes snapshots of the state of the game at any given point. And then essentially what it's doing with these snapshots is it's sort of wrenching the simulation to kind of conform to to what the recording says. And again, you can get the trade-off there is that you can get more precise recordings the higher the resolution of the recording, but of course the higher the resolution of the recording, the more memory that you need to be able to do that. This is one of the reasons why there isn't an end-to-end replay in this game. I don't think it's because they can't do it. I think it's because they don't want the system requirements to be like 64 gigabytes of RAM. So the reason why I'm taking the time to talk about this is that if you take a look at what happens with these bullets, I'll get it one last time. I think this is an example of how that recording system's working. So what you've got here is you've got a shot that's going off, and you can see that it kind of just turns to the right. Like, obviously, that physics does not make any sense at all. But if you know that the game is taking little snapshots of the state of the world, and then it's kind of making the simulation kind of fall into accordance with it, then, all of a sudden that makes a lot more sense. So, again, I don't know. I didn't work on this. I haven't seen the internals for the game. I know everything that you do in terms of the game. But based on some of the statements that that Brace Yourself have made of the game, that's my guess in terms of why we're seeing what we're seeing. I personally, I think this stuff is really cool. So we're really not delivering in terms of the damage with the Manticore like we used to. I may want to consider a new loadout for a mech. Okay, so I've got a little bit of a window before this guy causes me trouble. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to pack in as many shots as I can. I'm going to move straight to the left. Okay, now that's still a problem because... Okay, that thing only does kinetic damage, so I actually don't need to worry about the buildings. So this should be sufficient because it's not actually going to penetrate the building. But I am going to get my own machine gunner to come in and let them know what I think of his bullying ways. I figure this is the biggest threat because they can shoot through buildings. Otherwise, yeah, I think we're in good shape. Oh, he's got his shield up now. Well, it's not up, but I think that shield's gonna cause us some problems. If I was clever, I might have moved my my mech to have friendly fire happen here, but I think mech safety is priority number 1 right now. Oh, that worked beautifully. The drone has a rough location of the crate, but we're going to need another ping to ensure it's picked up. Stay at the location to finish this. So this guy's going to eject. That thing went up in flames. So hopefully we can get an upgrade for the Manticore here. Okay. Oh, we got some liquid fix too. That's great. Okay, so we definitely want to take the Vulcan. That's all we can take. So the problem here is because it's a gray one. Yeah, so honestly, the kinetic damage isn't that good, but the heat generation is really high, so we're actually going to scrap that. So let's think about our upgrades. Overdrive shielding is tempting, excuse me. So these are all consumables. Radio uplink equips the base with a comms system capable of reaching the home guard to call for reinforcements if your reputation is sufficient. The higher your reputation, the more forces they will send. Losing these units in combat will reduce your reputation, but victories increase it. So I like allies, but they're not that important to me. We've got improved generation, so that's pretty good. Yeah, so I feel the military grade sensors is probably the real upgrade I want to be going towards. Like stealth efficiency, overdrive shielding, this stuff is nice, but... okay, we can do scan jamming, rain sensor. I think we'll go for the jammer. Okay, so... there's a couple things that I need to do now. One, I want to... I kind of want to get some tea. I'm also just feeling a little groggy, so I think I'm going to take a little bit of a break. I will run ads for a bit, but that's just so I can disable the pre-roll for those of you who are coming in new. I think what I'm also going to do... I am a little curious about the patch notes, so over the course of my break, I'm going to see if I can maybe see what's going on with that. So I don't want to be, like, I don't want to drag my feet. I know I was late starting today, but I am actually feeling, I'm sort of like feeling it in terms of just being, I don't know, off. So I can just use, again, I figure some tea is a decent enough pick-me-up, so I will be back as soon as I can, but again, I thank you all for your patience, and we'll be back as soon as I can. All right, thank you all for your patience. I'm sorry for the time that took. I'm really curious about these quality of life changes. So if somebody like leaps out in chat and screams and says, "My God, no! Please show us gameplay," I won't do that. But because most of you are lurkers, I think some of you want to see gameplay are now just going to have to suffer through it. I will try and make this reasonably sorry, I'm really irritated by something I just saw, so I want to write a few things. A little bit, many song. uh, Okay, so I'm looking for it was something related to Industries of Titan, and I've just I had enough. um, so I'm trying to find the announcements for the. Okay, actually, I'll share the thing that I said. So I'm like going in, and there's just so many people still complaining about Industries of Titan. So I finally just wrote like, some BS. I was really looking for, really sad to see IoT got shelved. The game is phenomenal. Absolutely love the style. Some BS. I was really looking forward to Titan being finished now. Got to be honest, I'm pretty upset about it, but what can you do? I hate that game success depend on streamers. Streamers offer nothing to society, IMO. So that was probably the point where I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. So 1, Titan is finished. Extra content would be nice, but it's a complete game. 2, Outreach is more than just broadcasters, and broadcasters are not solely responsible for a game you like succeeding or not. Whether you feel like they are contributing something you like, something or not. 3, I have been much more reluctant to participate in this particular section of the Discord because it is an immense drag to have people moaning about roadmap changes that are over a year old now. I like Titan a lot. I am finding I enjoy the game a lot more when I'm not engaging with the massive and largely unwarranted negativity about the game. If it wasn't your cup of tea, okay, life sometimes has disappointments, but how exactly is the prospect of future updates or a sequel being helped by making the official Discord so unpleasant to hang around in? Like, there's a great photo mode for crying out loud. Show us your cities or something. What's the vision for the great game that never was, at the very least? This game looks as good as it ever did. Obviously, I have talked about this a lot on the Twitter, and it's a shame because I really like the Brace Yourself Discord. But I actually talked with Sir Karma, who used to be the art director at Brace Yourself, and I actually had a few plans in terms of doing like a rate a layout series for YouTube. And I still kind of want to do that, but the biggest problem was I stopped visiting the the exception. Thank you very much for the resubscription. I really appreciate that. But yeah, so I don't know. Like, I just feel it's come up so much. Like, I haven't done that series just because every time I would visit the Discord, I'd have to just wade through all of that stuff. Also, 65 months. My God, I feel like I need to reevaluate my priorities in life. Thank you again. I really, really do appreciate that. But yeah, I don't know. It's just one of these things where. It's come up so much, especially on the stream side of things. You all have to deal with my ranting on that. So I think at the very least saying, I like it a lot more when you guys talk about the things you like about the game rather than the things that you're mad about. I'm not saying there isn't a place for criticism, but maybe something that is like constructive. So I'm sure it's not going to change. Maybe it's just helping me get stuff off my chest. But like the thing is that I really like. Actually, I can do this here for those of you who are fond of Phantom Brigade and Industries of Titan and all of that. Brace Yourself has a very nice Discord. My complaint with the tone in Titan lately notwithstanding. And they've actually curated a really good community there. It's one of the reasons why I find that one such a pain to deal with, because it's so unlike the other, the rest of the Discord. Myself. I mean, again, I will confess I spend a little less time in there than I used to. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like Titan deserves a lot more credit than it gets, even from its alleged fans. So maybe I should spin it up again and play it. Anyways, this is the update that was released yesterday, I believe. So I talked a little bit about, it just feels like a couple of the encounters are different, so I want to see what's going on here. So patch 110 changes and new features. An up means a buff was applied, a down means a nerf was applied, or a upward triangle and downward triangle, or whatever. Errors going back and forth, a trade-off occurred, and Johnny Silverhand means change was made based on community feedback. Content variety. Change the rules for which combat map is selected for each type of overworld entity. Combat map randomization will avoid the last selected map if more than one map is available. Patrols and convoys now qualify for a wider range of maps instead of just forest-themed maps. Forward bases now qualify for military maps instead of forest maps. And cities, towns, and villages now qualify for at least 2 maps each instead of just 1. So this is an interesting one because people have talked about the lack of variety in terms of the maps. I think this is about on par with, Total War might be a bit extreme for a comparison because there's a lot of maps inside of Total War. But like I've played Total War and have wound up on familiar maps before. But I think what's been happening in terms of the perception here is sometimes people wind up with the same map, like one on top of the other, and it makes it feel like there's less variety in the game than there really is. I think that's possibly what they're doing here. Added new types of patrols. Patrols are now split into 7 different types and no longer contain the exact same enemy squad for each fight and can vary in speed and vision on the overworld. Some new varieties include Arrowhead, small vision radius on the overworld, but it moves quickly. Hunter, significantly larger vision radius than a standard patrol, moves very slowly on the overworld. And Armored Unit, 8 tanks with very low armor and no mechs. Added the missing Blackbird armor. It is now a full set. Quality of life. Added the ability to drag all actions on the timeline. Oh, I'm actually so used to the old system that this is going to take some getting used to. This is really cool. You can now drag dashes, melee, movement actions, and wait actions. Dragging actions into each other will now shift them along the timeline. Empty space between movement actions now counts as a wait action, with the mech facing in the last chosen direction. You can still use the wait action to force your mech to look in a specific direction without moving. Change the way melee attacks function. So I think this is going to be a one that a lot of people appreciate. We rewrote the melee hit detection system from the ground up to make it more reliable and easier to execute. Melee weapons now emit shockwaves that continuously apply damage to everything in their path. These shockwaves are deterministically applied, resulting in a 1-to-1 prediction and execution. The new system is more reliable and stable at low frame rates, while the previous system was less so due to the high complexity and reliance on animation-based physics. Added new UI to landing enemy reinforcements to improve their visibility. Added missing functionality that allows attacks against landing units. Added a new UI to crash prediction system to improve visibility of crash occurrence. This is probably the one that would have been the most desired on my part. Added isoline display to maps while planning movements or selecting a target. I'm sure there's like a utility. Like there's probably some like there's a utility that you can get out of this that I'm probably missing. I just think it looks cool. And then change the appearance of retreat zones to be more visible. Balance changes. Fixed a significant data issue in the difficulty scaling of combat scenarios. Due to an oversight in data, some scenarios were spawning several units more than they should have been, elevating the difficulty of the game significantly in the second province. Oh, well, okay. Fair enough. Change turret behavior. Turrets now detect targets in a cone and fire at appropriate ranges rather than detecting in a static circle. And change shotgun balance to how to have a wider effective range. Interesting. I haven't really played around with modding, but let's take a quick look here. For a more comprehensive description of the changes made to modding efforts, please follow this link. Below is the surface level list of changes made to support the modding community. Simplified mod installation. The mods.yml file is required to install mods, now included automatically without requiring the user to create it themselves. Added support for pilot portrait overlays, including decorative overlays for use with the official 3D portraits. This also allows for fully 2D portraits to fully cover 3D portraits if desired. Say hello to all your anime characters. Added support to mod UI sprites. Added support for modding weapon colors, firing patterns, and special perks. Extended the visual system for allowing kit bashing of new weapons and armor. Extended weapon generation system. Extended scenario system, allowing creation of complex combat scenarios and modifications for the combat system. Fixed a huge number of issues in the modding system suggested by programmers in the modding community. Thank you for your continued support and patience. So, modding's something I really wish that I could do more often, but I don't know, like it takes a bunch of time, and I feel like creating something new gets the priority. There is a lot here, and I appreciate all the work that that QA does for this. But I think I do want to get back to the game because you've all been patient enough with me. So, but yeah, so my perception that there was a like a higher difficulty was just that, a perception. Okay, there's a side of me that kind of wants to just go barreling towards the capital city. Let's at least go to, I don't even know, Krus. Scientific development has long been blooming in this region, starting with landmark research into fusion and superconductivity, and continuing to this day. A large number of experimental units operate in the region, so it must be approached with caution. So we'll do overdrive for as long as we can, but I'm gonna have to power that down. Okay, I'll recharge. The fact that we got some liquid fix off of the enemy convoy is good. I keep forgetting, actually, with the addition of liquid fix, it does make me feel a bit more like a raiding party. Sorry, I'm a little worried that my audio settings got messed up again. It's been a really long time to be broadcasting like this, but nope, we're good. So I suppose if I want, I can just contest the province right away. Gear up. At your order, the base flies into action and prepares for a fight. An engineer sprints toward the bay to check on the guns, passing a scout relaying combat data through the radio. There is shouting everywhere. At your side, someone's leg bounces up and down, boot heel tapping on the grate. You feel eyes on you, awaiting your command. Okay, so we're going to take some time to just see if there's any improvements that I can put on my mechs. So the big question is, do they have a defensive module? If they don't, then I probably can't do anything with it. So some nice light legs. So this light plate might make something happen. So the Tsubasa is still lighter. Some of my, like, this one, everything but the torso is usually pretty light. The funniest one, and I've seen some people comment on this on the Discord, it's like they'll have heavy mechs and they'll put like heavy arrow legs on, but they're like, my mech looks ridiculous. The legs look so skinny. It's like, well, yeah, because the arrow is just a very small, a very small one. So you can see that here in the sense, I'm just trying to think the best way to, the gun kind of gets in the way. But like, just because I've got this nice like barrel-chested like medium Elbrus, but everything else is a Tsubasa. Like, if I were to put a, well, either of these really, like it looks weird, but it's not quite as, it doesn't make him look quite as scrawny. But hey, that's how it works. There is a side of me that wants to like make this a melee unit, but that's going to be a really big overhaul to the unit, so that's like a wish list thing rather than an actual thing. Okay, so as always, if I can get a better torso. So like this is a decent example here, right? So we've got a bit of a heat dissipation problem. Oh, it's because of the overdrive core. Well, let's just play around and see what we can get. So if I throw a hot rod on this thing. Okay, we're already down to, yeah. This Nox arm's definitely gonna work. Okay. Again, I feel like I should be... see, it's the fact that it's a blue... It's the fact that it's a rare chest is what's keeping me from being able to make the most of that. Okay, so... got a weight reduction and improved cooling. The cooling is mighty tempting here. These are basically the same thing, so can't quite make the rest work there. We'll take the protector. Again, I'm assuming I've already got the machine gun that I want on that. Yeah, the loss of the mass. Again, I've created a bit of a problem for myself in the sense that I need to keep the weight. It's like what I'm really looking for here is a way of getting like more mobility, I think. Yeah, I think I've actually... So, for those of you that you've been lurking, your roommate and you are listening to you all are doing your eyebrows, playing Balloon Defense Tower now, so addicted. I've never heard of Balloon Defense Tower, but hello, roommate, and hopefully I haven't been too tedious to listen to. So I don't know how many of you do math stuff, but like, if any of you have had to do like calculus, you know how sometimes you'll have like a local minima, but there's like a global... minimum somewhere else, and like or like machine learning people, how like when you do every time you go grocery shopping. So like if you, for those of you who are like data science or machine learning people, like you might have heard of gradient descent, and like you sort of know how if you've got like a linear regression, you have this sort of like bowl shape for the cost function, so you sort of know that wherever you land on that bowl shape, the gradient descent is always going to go down into the bottom of the bowl. But if you have something that looks, you know, a little bit more wavy, so like, I don't know, somebody lying underneath a cover or like a golf course or something like that, and it's all sort of hilly and bumpy, and like your like gradient descent is not guaranteed to find you the lowest possible point out of all of them. It's just going to find you a low point. So I kind of feel like I've sort of found maybe a local maxima in terms of the protector right now, but you're kind of already seeing like how its level is starting to sort of lag behind a bit. I mean, in fairness, the Herald's the only one that's up to 9 now. But like the thing is that because I'm trying to keep its weight at a certain level for the 3, and I'm also trying to maximize its speed, there's like only so much that I can get in terms of power to push that thing forward. So as a result, there might be upgrades that I'm just not equipping for this guy because in the end, I need to maintain a certain weight to be able to body check enemy mechs. Anyways, we'll work this all out, but I want to see what we're up against. So. Experimental, a group of small mech squads that specialize in different tactical techniques. They carry experimental and usually powerful equipment. So this small squad is what, 7 units. But it's raining, so we'll get a little bit of a bonus to... Oh, there's turrets. Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. This is another really good song. I don't think I've seen this level before. Code Red, hostile unit contact. All units hold optional range and await reinforcements. Sorry, optimal range. I didn't see any notes about new maps, but I'm trying to remember... It may just be the rain, but I'm trying to recall if I've ever encountered this map before. Anyway, let's see what we're up against. So we've got the shotgunner. Let's see what the range... Okay, very short range on that, so as long as we do... But it's also got a ton of armor, so... we've got a machine gunner, which is a bit more of a worry. Got a shotgun tank and a beam tank. Okay, so one major lesson out of all of this is that these are... these are very, very short range mechs. So my usual so I'll confess my my longbow is usually my tank muncher. I'd use it to actually hang on. Okay, so we're gonna dash up to... I should dash on the left, though. So I want to get some early damage in on this unit. And the rain makes all the difference there. Okay, so that doesn't quite work because the tank winds up shooting through my heavy. Okay, and then we finally got the Herald. I think we can afford to dash one at the start, but I'm going to try where I can. Ah, the turrets are actually going to shut that down. Okay, I'm still going to hold to this plan, but they're not going to be that effective on this first run. Okay, I think we'll just lock that in and see how it turns out. Okay, that wasn't enough to take out the tank, sadly. It was close, but... Alright, so everybody's piling in on this mech here. So I have two options. I'm going to dash this unit to the side. And one reason for that is this unit's going to be using its shield against the Herald, so I can use that to my advantage by just moving the Herald off to the side. So it's from the 3-minute mark onwards. I'll probably have, yeah, I do have some heat problems off of that, so. So this is a little crummy just because I wanted to make a move on those tanks, but what I'll do instead, I'll make sure we've got the marksman rifle. And then we'll just, we'll offer some aid to our ally here. And then the balance will be focused on this unit. So let's just make sure that the... Okay, that's a worry in terms of how... Oh, this is going to be fun. So I'm going to move up like this. And I'm going to run down. Okay, so they're going to take a shot. This is a machine gun, so I'm pretty safe there. What I'm kind of banking on here is that this unit's not going to... I'm kind of banking on the fact that this unit's not going to... That this unit's going to be focusing its shield towards me. So let's see how the turn goes. So a little damage there. So it's one crash, one destruct. No, two tanks pop. This unit's almost done. I wouldn't be surprised if they ejected, actually. This unit's crashing because it's got its legs shot out from under it, but I suspect we're going to have to continue fighting. Okay, so this guy's ejecting, for sure. I'm going to move my... Herald to a slightly safer place. That slightly safer place isn't good for shooting enemies, though. So, of course, the difficulty here is that they're going to be occupying the zones where it's a little bit better to shoot at the enemy. So we'll get behind some cover for that. And then finally we'll bring in the longbow to try and help seal the deal. Who doesn't have an order? Right, I don't want this unit to follow through on an order. If anything, actually, I want them moving to mess with the... Hey, they survived. Cool. That was pretty straightforward. Okay, so we've got an accelerator and a battery. Let's grab the Vidar, the Svalin. Actually, let's just grab all the parts. Okay, I gotta give up one of them. I am slightly sad about that, but... Our heart and soul. Someone plops a large crate onto the table in front of you. Slowly you look up and take in the proud face of one of the townsmen. He beams at you, his mustache twirling in glee. We don't have much to give you, Brigade, but this is the heart and soul of our town. He gestures to the alcohol in the crate. We make it all locally, right down to the glass and the labels. You did us an enormous favor, so it's only right you get to take some of our heart and soul with you. The townsman preens, and one of your pilots whistles at the offering. Please enjoy, and come back to visit sometime. So I'd love to say no time like the present, but we'll save this for later because this can actually be really helpful during one of the liberation events. Okay, so I don't know if I explained how this works, but when you are playing, like when you go into contest a province, there will be these battles that show up. So we've already done one of these battles before. This will probably be the last one for the night. But the idea is you can ignore these, but you'll notice that there's sort of this score that's popped up once I contested the province. And the idea is that the Home Guard can't necessarily sustain the battles without the help of the Phantom Brigade. And as a consequence, if you choose to ignore those battles, you start seeing the Home Guard strength diminish, and it is possible to lose a contested province. Essentially, you just sort of, the rebellion is defeated, you have to go back, lick your wounds, and then come back, but you've sort of lost the progress that you had before. There was a little bit more of a build-up previously. I'm like 50-50 on how the systems work. So the drawback for me is like right now, I'll usually just go in and contest a province and like sweep it all away. The old system though, you sort of had to build up some hope in a region, which I think is good, and it sort of reinforces some of the early themes that are introduced in that opening cinematic. And the only kind of drawback, about it was that like I'd spend all this time in a province like trying to take down different bases and such, and by the time I actually got around to contesting the province, it sort of felt like I was doing everything all over again, except that most of the bases had already been taken over. So I slightly prefer this one because it lets me move on to the next province a bit faster, but I do sort of feel that it's just, for me, it just makes sense to go in and contest right away. And I don't really feel that's quite how the game was intended. But I mean, again, I still love this game, so it's not a big deal. Okay, so I am gonna wait for my people to get repaired. All right, and then we go to the battle site. Okay, and there's the new designated objectives. I believe in the full nation. If it's not good for Quebec, it's not good for you cowboys. Besides, I'm assuming you are federally partial to the blue team. So aren't you guys up like 10 percentage points in the polls? Everybody likes going on about the equalization payments. The only thing is that I know, like, for the... this is totally the worst place to go. Like, I always would have thought that particularly the provinces that rely heavily on oil, so that it's obviously not just Alberta. I know Newfoundland and Labrador relies a lot on it. But I would have thought, like, equalization would be a really good thing for them. Because obviously that commodity is subject to a world price. And so when things are going really well, obviously they get sort of soaked for the equalization. But of course, when things are going poorly, then it kind of winds up moving over to them. And like the great shame, in my opinion, and this is like not a political party thing, especially because like in terms of Alberta, it's like the progressive conservatives, and it's just like, do you have the more liberal one or do you have the more conservative one there? Like it's basically with the historical anomaly of the Notley government, it kind of feels like it's basically it's always going to be a PC government. It's just the question of the flavor of that one. The one great shame is that, like, my general understanding of non-renewable resources is that you want ideally a government that kind of keeps in mind what the lifetime value of that resource is, and then you sort of make sure that you are able to transform that into sort of investment and infrastructure into the local economy that might be from another source. Again, because it's a finite resource, right? At some point that you're gonna reach an end. And of course, the drawback is that so many countries and so many, even at a lower level of government, usually don't do that. Usually, what winds up happening is they wind up paying like a citizen's dividend, in which case basically it's just, you wait for an election and then you just kind of pay people a bunch of money. And, people are really happy with that. But obviously, the thing you kind of want from a government is like long-term planning. But of course, because you have governments that are looking to win the next election, they're still going to do potentially short-term thoughts. So I always tend to think that these days, it's a little bit like EI. Like one of the things I like about EI is that nobody has to make an argument for whether or not the economy is going well or going poorly. It just winds up being stimulus. If people start losing their jobs, then effectively it winds up being fiscal stimulus in the sense that people are given something to go in. So generally I tend to like automatic stabilizers like that, just because in the end I know like trying to get the provinces and the federal government to agree on anything is like pulling teeth. So yeah, but I mean, my hope is that Canada lasts more than a couple hundred years, right? Like the thing is that, like when I'm talking about long-term horizons, I am sort of talking in terms of like diplomacy, right? Diplomacy is about surviving into next century. Politics is about surviving to next week. So, like I totally understand that it's a massive there's a massive reserve, but when you take a look at, again, I'm thinking a little bit more globally here, but if you take a look at countries which have fairly large natural resource sectors, they also tend to be ones that do have quite a bit of investment in usually they just wind up having like very large sovereign wealth funds, to be honest. But yeah, in this case here, like the idea is that you're transforming. It's kind of like when you have a job, right? Like you're transforming your talents. Even if, like, let's just say you're naturally endowed with strength, right? You can go and work in construction for a really long time and build up something of a nest egg, because of course there's going to be one day when working in construction is considerably harder. And so you kind of make hay while you can. You'd say 20 years? 20 years is not long. I'll look at any empire or country in the past, and I would say hundreds of years is a better term rather than decades. Like, I'm not saying the world's not going to change, but I think thinking in decades is a very, very short timeline. I mean, like, Canada's young at 150, right? Well, a little more than 150 now, but... Still didn't have... So is the argument that because a country in the history has, has undergone turmoil, that all countries share the same fate? Because, like, I can say I can remember a little thing called the British Empire or the Roman Empire. I suppose where I would hope to see a little bit more development of that argument would be, what is it specifically about Yugoslavia that you feel is relevant to Canada? Well, yeah, but I mean, surely the argument to take a long term, like a long view in planning, like, it would seem to me that surely one is hastening one's own demise if you say, yeah, well, nothing lasts forever, so we should just sort of burn it all up while we can and live well. And presumably the countries that are longer lived are the ones that do sort of think towards these very long term, these long time horizons and get big things done, right? I'm certainly no apologist for the British Empire, but I mean, when you take a look at some of the stuff, it's first great age of globalization, the maniacs who did the first undersea telegraph cable and failed 3 times, losing, millions of dollars, or British pounds, which obviously was worth considerably more given the empire. I definitely think that a country as prosperous as Canada can afford to think a little bit bigger than just, it's all going to fall apart. So as always with the longbow, we're back to a point where we want to try and improve the heat dissipation more than anything. Okay, so we can get away with a weight reduction Mark 2. So my limit here in terms of weight would be 14.1. Okay, that still doesn't do the trick. Yeah, I mean, that's not a particularly fringe view. I mean, I think people have the difficulty that I have with that particular point of view, right, is that it's a little bit like when people talk about massive financial crises. Like, there's a great quote from Paul Samuelson on this, where it's like, was it the stock market has predicted, 15 out of the last 10 recessions, and the mistakes were beauties or something along those lines. Like, the idea here is that, you have an indicator, and everybody likes pointing where it's like, oh yeah, this thing predicted the recession. But they tend not to really focus a lot on the times when it doesn't get it right. So a little bit like, if you have your ads enabled, like if you don't use an ad blocker, you're usually going to see some like gray-haired guy, and there's going to be some variation on the, so-and-so predicted the last, the 2008 financial crisis. Here's what they're saying right now. And the thing is that, like, the story of the boy who cried wolf, like, in the story, the wolf does actually come. And, it's the individual prediction. Obviously he's not doing a prediction, but like, yeah, like at some point, sometimes these things do turn out, although the models that people are using to predict them, don't, like, they're not the ones I would want to rely on. So the thing is, like, I have no idea what's going to happen to the United States, right? Like, there's lots of different accounts that you can give for and against its resilience. So, like, the one thing that I think probably doesn't get considered enough is what the States was like in the 1960s. That alone, like, if you just think of the number of, like, public figures that were straight up assassinated, and just the level of sort of rioting and discontent present in the society there, even though things in the States, you know, are not great, I'm still not entirely sure that it would be fair to say that they are as bad as things were back then. Now, again, you don't desire, you don't necessarily wish for, you know, to be, like, if you're convincing someone it's not as bad as it used to be, that's still not a great argument, right? You have zero idea for the future, just stopping by. There's so many states that would like to split off that die without federal funding. It's like Quebec, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, this is the thing, right? Like, depending on what kind of, and I mean, one thing that's accelerated this a lot, of course, is the type of, you know, YouTube channels that you watch. If you watch a certain type of YouTube channel, you're only ever going to hear the stuff that keeps telling you that the world is falling apart, and, you know, pick your particular out group, right? Either, you know, conservatives or the woke mind virus, or Anita Sarkeesian, or, you know, like UFOs. Like, you know, if you watch any one of those videos, YouTube's going to give you 10,000 of those other videos, because it's the stuff that people, like, once they start watching it, they never stop. But yeah, like, the difficulty is that it's hard to like, for someone like me that tries to, you know, weigh it as well as I can, and I'm not that versed in U.S. history, you know, I couldn't sit down and say, you know, something bad would never happen. You know, within our lifetimes, we've got, you know, a major terrorist attack on U.S. soil. You know, we've got the election of, you know, an insane demagogue who, you know, basically really does actually seem to be the fulfillment of the H.L. Mencken prophecy. But, you know, with that in mind, like, in individual measures, you know, the U.S. is actually doing quite well economically. You wouldn't think it if you read Twitter, but almost every economic indicator for the country is surprisingly solid. You know, there's going to be a group of people who never want to say that because it's not in their political interests to say so. And a level of division like that really does create problems. And then likewise, when you say, you know, that there's this sort of rebalancing of the world away from the U.S., that definitely would have been a stronger argument prior to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And then I think everybody has sort of realized how important sort of a U.S.-led world order is. And now you have things that had been perennial concerns for the U.S. in terms of, like, NATO, in terms of, like, underfunding in that. Germany, of all places, is, you know, investing heavily in its military. So again, it's a tough call, because depending on like, to a certain extent, there's a set of facts that you can work with. And like I said, you know, the one parallel I would be interested in would be to kind of take a look around, like, the 60s and 70s, to sort of see what the States was like then, and to kind of compare it to today, to sort of take a look at what sort of modern unrest looks like. And that's one that I really haven't sort of sat down and done a proper think about. But then the second one is that I just also kind of know the media landscape that I'm in. There's actually a reason why I don't really like the publication The New Republic, but I still follow it, because I do sort of find it useful to kind of hear what the very hard lefty kind of, well, I mean, there are harder left publications, but, like, The New Republic is one that really makes me grind my teeth. But I find it useful to sort of hear what that perspective is. I try where I can to sort of see the right side. Like, for instance, I read National Post reasonably often. It's better that it used to be better. Now it's kind of gone back down the silly path, I tend to find. But it's a little bit harder because, like, National Review sort of seems to have gone a little kooky. I guess the American Spectator every once in a while. God, I may even have the wrong one. But, like, again, like, it's one of these things where it's sometimes helpful to be a little bit broader in terms of the reading. I specifically do that because I know that the usual mechanisms through which I find my, for me, I tend to find the usual mechanisms for me getting my information are really geared towards sort of telling me what I've looked at before. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Take that as you will. But I've heard. I'll put it to you this way, Vanguardmeister. It's not the first time I've heard that sort of stuff. And let's do keep in mind, all I really was talking about was an effective management of natural resources, right? I wasn't the one to bring up, Western decline. I feel that may be expanding the scope of the discussion a bit, but dealing with the topic as presented to me, I suppose the best I can say is that I do, where I can, try to temper that with the best analogy that I can sort of find to history. Yeah, no worries, Algrins. I'm probably going to be wrapping up. I've filibustered out the time. I feel this is probably a more serious discussion than I can handle in the load up section, but I am determined to get this battle in. I mean, again, this will be the last I say on it. Is like, I'm not trying to be insensitive to your argument here, Vanguard Master, but I also sort of feel that I'm at least owed the same respect. Like, when I give NATO as an example, I don't feel it's appropriate to sort of turn around and say, oh, the world's bigger than NATO. Like, of course I know that, I'm giving one example of a statement that might have had more force in the past, but giving an example where, as a consequence of current events, that progress has been arrested. There are other examples that I can give, but the purpose of an example is to illustrate the point. And I would hope that you feel that I've given, your thoughts their due. And likewise on my own side, I do kind of hope that there's at least enough of the principle of charity here to say that I think that there is more to the world than NATO. Like, I hope I have at least established that I am thoughtful enough not to think that one example will encompass the totality of existence. If not, I mean, it just means in the future I'm going to have to use like 5 or 6 examples, and at that point that's got to be a conversation that we have offline. Okay, this is definitely a better shield, so we'll throw that one on. And we're back to the perennial problem of balancing weight against integrity. So this is a full 100 off the... Oh yeah, that makes it a medium, so... Jesus. Hang on, I gotta make sure that Svalin was actually the best one I could put on the protector. Okay, that's even better. I give up some mass for that, though. God, is that one better? Okay, 1665, what happens if I give it the light plate? $23.47, that's still worth it. Alright, I think that's the best I can manage here. Again, probably some of my favorite encounters. Like I said, there's two reasons why my favorite encounters are in the rain. Number one, it just looks cool. But number two, it does also really help with the heat dissipation. And that, in this particular case, this is really where my squad sings. So we've got a lot of enemy tanks here, which is great. My longbow should have a field day here. And let's see what we're up against next. Okay, so we've got one with a heavy weapon. That marksman's actually going to be a real pain to deal with. And we've got tank with machine gun, an assault rifle. Okay, so the beam's the only one I can sort of afford to ignore. Now, I'm a little lucky that it's the unit with the assault rifle. It's the Herald that's currently being targeted by the marksman rifle, and actually the distance on this is really large anyway. But what I'm going to start with, I'm going to just run the Herald up the middle, and we're going to fire on whatever we can. So the real prize is to take on the as much as I can, I want to damage the... Oh. That's a first. The game, it's actually the first time the game's crashed in a while. So I don't think we're going to get the same loadout as last time. That's a shame. That was actually a really favorable, it's a really favorable setup for us. And it doesn't seem like it's raining now. Yep. All right. Well, you win some, you lose some. So weirdly enough, the placement is the same. I just don't have the advantage of the rain anymore. And looks like they are targeting my units differently. But let's try the same strategy as last time. Oh, that works beautifully, actually. Okay, so we'll do the same trick as before. Now, I suspect I'm not going to be able to combine the shots. Ah, curses. All right. Ugh. So this particular tank is shutting down the whole approach. So I'm gonna get the Herald to clear. They're gonna take the long way around. The longbow is gonna set up to take out that tank as early as possible. Man, the angles are all wrong on this. I'm not gonna lie, that's not my favorite opportunity, but I think I can live with this. Good God. So I guess the catch here is that, like, I've won my path through here, but it takes so long that I don't get the actual benefit of being able to rip up the heavy. I'm still sticking with this, but this didn't turn out quite the way that I wanted. So I am gonna start working on the unit with the marksman rifle here. In fact, let's maybe get the Manticore in on this too. I wonder if it's better to just... No, it can't dash. I think we'll just double up the heavy weapons on this one. So I don't mind the tanks doing their own thing. Yeah, so like firing a missile at an enemy unit's not too bad. This isn't the most inspiring shot, but I think that'll do as well. Okay, let's see how the turn turns out. Okay, so that was probably a bit of overkill. Oh, that was definitely overkill on this guy. Taking every fire, send word to command that we've lost units. Okay, so at least in terms of like the immediate threats, that definitely took care of things. Okay, but the marksman, or the longbow rather, is really really living up to its role as a tank muncher. Okay, so this thing I believe does have a high impact, so I definitely need to get out of the danger zone. So best thing I can do, well, okay, so best thing would be to dash, but I do need to try and shed as much heat as I can first. Now, if I'm completely honest, my preference would be to I'd kind of prefer to move this unit back like this, but the problem is that I'm also trying to move, well, I mean, if I wanted to move fully perpendicular, I would move up here, but like I'm trying to make sure that the kind of the big wide arc for the heavy weapon causes the bullets to just go all over the place. So what I'm going to rely on as a follow-up is my my Herald kind of going in and getting some good shots to the back. In fact, that's one I'm willing to overheat on in this case. Okay, that's just getting in position. We are not going to be able to take the shot. That should probably take care of that tank. I do question why this tank's moving in so close, though. Okay, how much damage does this thing do? 716 is actually pretty serious, so let's throw up the shield to make sure that we deal with that first. Okay, it's a little bit of a... I'll be honest, it's a weird round, but the only thing I don't like is that this unit's kind of left to its own devices. I'm mostly curious in terms of how this turns out. I'm assuming they'll be fine, but... Okay, well, we already shot out their legs, so that's good. And then one more shot to their left arm, and it's good night on their best unit. Okay, that unit's down, so we've got 2 tanks to deal with, and then potentially the whatever remains of their... Okay, concussed pilot, so we don't need to worry about that anymore. I'm kind of banking on this unit getting taken out reasonably quickly, but I can angle things a little bit better on my side. Oh, that farm's still in the way. I don't think they're going to arrive in time. Yeah, so I basically need to survive the shot. Okay, how much does this thing do? 591 is enough to take a part off me, so I think I need to reevaluate what I'm doing with this unit. My best bet actually is to just dash away. Okay, if I go for a second... If I go for a second hit with them, that's on me, so I gotta run away. This isn't exactly my preference, but it's what I've got. Yeah, I don't know. It's rough, but okay, it avoided the worst of the damage. And it's still attacking, so we let our... We'll let the longbow finish the job. I can't believe we screwed that up. We better not lose this tank. I can't believe this. There's like 200 and... no, that's like almost 400 points of damage I've taken trying to take this stupid tank. Okay, now they eject. So this is probably going to be my new Manticore weapon. More importantly, we were able to defend the home guard. So when we play Phantom Brigade next, we're going to go to the 2 listed objectives. What I am going to do is get my... I think the Manticore isn't taking damage. Yeah. So we're going to go from the... okay, so the only drawback here is I think... Oh no, we still have a weapon module. So yeah, that's another 700 in terms of the... It's not because I want thermal payload on that, it's because I want the... Actually, how's the concussive on that? They're both 82. I don't know, I feel like the expanded magazine's the way to go on that one. And I think I'm going to leave the rest of the upgrades for a future episode. I probably wasn't going to do the rain sensor, but I'm curious now. So I don't know. I feel like this was a decent run. A little choked about the crash, but these things happen. So we are August 2nd. I guess technically the 3rd now, but yeah. As long as you are happy to see more Phantom Brigade, I'm happy to play it. Obviously there is... I do want to just draw people's attention to the fact that there is another... that there is a Brace Yourself publishing game that was released a week ago called Super Raft Boat Together. I quite liked it. But in this case, it didn't quite seem to get a lot of attention. when I streamed it, so I might try it again, but I am trying to keep the numbers where they are, you know, extended conversations of topics that I guess people aren't very interested in, notwithstanding. But that's how it works sometimes. I will be back Friday, and there's actually a lot of stuff for me to potentially play. So there is Cyberpunk. I do want to get back to Age of Wonders 4 at some point. There is, I guess, technically Outlast 4, but I think I'm going to put Outlast aside for a little while. And then, but yeah, Cyberpunk is definitely something we've done before. Age of Wonders 4 is something we've definitely done before. And of course, there's a little game called Baldur's Gate 3 coming out tomorrow, which I know appeals to some as well. But yeah, so we're certainly spoiled for choice as far as games go. But I'll figure that out on Friday. If you have a preference, let me know. Otherwise, thank you, Vanguard Master, Algrins, Dendrian, Taviriosity. I saw you streaming Cyberpunk earlier, actually. So, Raybeam, there are a few of you. I know a lot of you were lurking in that, but thanks everybody for hanging out. And actually, let me get that shout out to. Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing Baldur's Gate 3. The only thing is, like, everybody's going to be playing that on Friday, so I'm sure a lot of you are going to be enjoying Baldur's Gate too. So we'll see. I'm not opposed to doing it, but I definitely would not mind. I would not mind. I don't know, finishing off some of the stuff I've been working on. So I'm just taking a quick look here, seeing if I can find. Trying to find brace yourself stuff to. I think How Is It Manifested isn't live anymore. Alright, I'm sorry. I got absolutely nothing. I don't know anybody who's streaming, so thank you everybody for hanging out. I'm just gonna abruptly end it. And wish you all a good night. I'll see you Friday, and take care until then.